everyone deep down is struggling with something.
Yeah.
We doing things in our life so that our hearts are totally satisfied with the work we're doing, or is it so that we can brag to people?
What can people like that do to implement those simple techniques in their life, whether it's meditation or whatever it is, to feel that sense of like peace within them while running this rat race that they feel like they have to run? So for the people who probably saw the title of this podcast, The Rich Life, it's not what you think it is. We're not going to be talking about finances and investments and how to make that 7-figure salary. The richness that we're discussing today is about the art of living a life that feels so authentic to yourself, where you feel so whole on your own that everything else materialistic outside just comes as secondary. So stay tuned if you want to listen to that, because my guest, Bhavajan Kumar, is one of my favorites. No offense to any other dancers, but he's one of my favorite dancers who was originally from Toronto, but he took his dedication for his art form to a next level by completely leaving his life behind here and moving to Chennai. And now he's one of the most successful dancers that I know, who's like touring across the world and performing everywhere in some of like the most recognized venues. So I know some of you are probably listening to this saying, okay, I'm not an artist or a dancer. I can't leave my life behind here and move to a country and live that simple life. But it's not about leaving your life here and going behind. It's about staying where you are, but creating a life that feels so true to you that you feel the peace within, and not needing that external validation and not needing materialistic things to identify you with them to form an identity for yourself. So let's go to Bhavajan now. Bhavajan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited because one of the things that I love talking a lot about is like how important it is to stay true to yourself and create that life for yourself that you say, I did everything on my own and nothing that I'm doing is because society or someone else pressured me to do. And I feel like you define that. Your life defines that. So I want to talk about what sparked this interest to say, you know what, the life in Toronto is great, but I am leaving all this behind and moving to Chennai to pursue the arts. So let's start there.
I think this is a very long answer, so I'm just gonna
Go for it.
Go for it. So I started learning formally when I was like 7 or 8.
Okay.
But I think the interest to dance was there even before I formally started learning. So when I was, my family is known to party.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's a completely different side of you. But
so
okay.
whenever we would get together, there would be music on, and instinctively, I just would get up and dance. And I don't know where I picked up Bharathanatyam from.
Okay.
But if there was, say for example, from that movie Karagatakaran, like Saukyama Kanne Saukyama, or there's just film songs that have a resonance of a classical music.
Yeah.
So I would just start dancing. I have never learned formally.
Okay.
But it was just something that I started doing. And my grandmother, in fact, she told my parents, he's interested in it. He's showing a natural inclination towards it. Why don't you put him in formal classes?
Yeah.
And of course, like any father, my father was like, a boy dancing? What?
Yeah.
But because their interest was there, he listened to his mother, and he put me in. And from there, I think there was just no end to it.
Wow.
From there, many things, changed in my life. I think I found a way of expression. I met people with the same interests as me. In fact, I think I was the only boy in dance class here, but over the years, few boys joined, they left, they joined, they left.
Okay.
So it was nice to know that there was interest in little pockets of time within Toronto. But long story short, I was learning here until I did my Arangetram in 2006 with Vasu Master, and then after, I think with all dancers here, the Arangetram kind of ends your kind of, romance with the art form.
Yes.
Because they move on to studies or university or they just wrap it up.
Yeah.
But that's kind of unfortunate because it's something that you've dedicated your time to since you were a child and you're just throwing it away. So I think my parents also thought I would do that. So they did an engagement for me. And they said,
he's
okay,
gonna
now
get over that phase.
Yeah, now
okay.
let's move on to better things. But it became an obsession for me. Like, not to put it lightly, but it was I was very much obsessed with Bharathanatyam and the community that was not here but in India. Because we had access to the internet, so I had access to various artists who were of such extremely good caliber that I was like, I want to be like that, you know? So I think the desire was planted because of YouTube, to be very frank, because I had access to so many wonderful artists.
Yeah.
And so I just, I think there's also a factor that your environment plays a factor in the person you become. So I think, I don't know, maybe it was just subconsciously I said, you know, if I want to make it as a Bharathanatyam dancer, I have to go put myself in that environment.
Right.
So I had never lived in India before I just jumped at the thought of it.
Okay.
So we had visited once, I think in 2006, and I moved in 2010. Yeah, so in 2006...
So it wasn't like a transition of going back before you made that decision?
No, it was just like, I'm going to do it.
Wow.
So, of course, I had many people who thought I was delusional. Fair enough, right?
Yeah.
But I think I just thought that there was no other way. I just had to do it.
Right.
Right? So it was just something I wasn't going to compromise on. And I think one person who did inspire me to do this was Yalini.
Okay.
Because when I was in grade 9, she had gone to India after grade 12 and done that intensive training with Nattaki Amma.
Yeah.
And I saw all those interactions on Facebook, and I thought, okay, if she can do it, maybe I can as well.
Yeah.
Right? So I think, Yalini did spark that possibility for me.
To actually...
Because before her, I don't think anyone had actually... I mean, maybe they had, but I think because I knew Yalini personally, it was something that I saw with my own eyes. So so after grade 12, I went there I went there for 6 months, actually, for like what is that period called before you do university? There's just like this little gap year, right? Gap year.
The gap year? Yeah, I guess. I guess that's what you say,
Yeah. So I did a gap year,
Okay.
And I had gotten admission to Ryerson University for Information Technology Management.
Okay.
So I had gone for like a month, and I was like, this really is not me.
Nope.
This is not me. I'm just doing this because I'm going to get a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And my interest was in dance. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet and just try it.
Yeah.
Right? And surprisingly, when I went there, things were not easy because, of course, this was the first time I was living away from my parents.
Yeah.
Like there was never a time when I was away from my parents. So this was completely new for me. I even remember the first time I went to meet an artist after a program. I didn't know the social norms. So instead of, doing this, I extended my hand for a handshake.
Yeah.
And they were just like, but I didn't know. I grew up here.
Toronto boy.
Yeah, I'm a Toronto boy, right? So this was not received well.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine.
I think over the years you kind of adapt the
mannerisms, I guess.
Not the mannerisms, but the customs.
Yeah.
Yeah, mannerism I think is an outward thing, but the custom is like it's embedded in the culture, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I think because even though I was born and brought up here, when I move to another place, I can't remain Canadian.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I've
noticed that myself.
Yeah.
When I see you in Chennai, when I see you in Toronto, you're a different person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is good, which is a really good thing.
Yeah, I think it's just, they call it code switching.
Yeah.
But more than that, I think it's just, I am both people. Like, and I think this is something that even not just artists deal with, but anyone who has two important identities deal with, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're both Tamil and Canadian,
yeah.
right? And with our family, we're a certain way. With our schoolmates or colleagues, we're a different way, right? But both those identities are who we are.
Yeah.
So I think for me also, I've lived there as much as I've lived here.
Exactly.
So even when I'm there, my accent changes.
Yeah.
Right? And some people may find it odd that I speak like that, but for me, it's just like, it's not even a conscious thing. It's just like a subconscious thing that I'm just I'm just tuning into.
But I think that's also, in a way, very respectful to the people there, because sometimes they might not be able to understand our accent,
Correct.
the Canadian accent.
Yeah.
And when you speak according to a way that makes them understand,
they feel welcome.
They feel welcome, and they
Yeah.
feel, okay, I'm at the same level. Whereas when we go and say, oh, I'm Canadian, and
Correct.
It doesn't matter where it is. Like when you say that, they think of them as like, oh, it's like, oh, they're trying to say
there's
that
a distance.
they're higher
There's an
than
immediate distance between us.
Yeah. But
just,
speaking of like the duality that you were talking about, I think it also kind of made me think about, there's two sides of you where it's like, just because I said, okay, he left everything and went to India, it's not like life is so easy there where you just go with the flow. You still have to have that side of you where you like, make goals for yourself, where you're achieving things.
Yeah.
You need money to survive. Like
Absolutely,
those things are things that you need to consider. And like, that kind of comes to that concept we have of like the masculine side of you and the feminine side of you, where it's like the masculine is the one that like kind of keeps you driven, like that's the side of you that's making the goals and helping you achieve them, whereas the feminine side goes with the flow. So you need both sides of that to balance and be like equal, right? And
Correct.
it's the same thing when it comes to the personality of you in Toronto and the personality of India. You need both sides to balance you for who you are, right?
Correct.
So what is it like to actually live in India and pursue the arts, but also kind of prioritize the fact that you need to make an income out of it, and to, like, yes, you want to keep learning, but you also need like basic survival.
Yeah.
What's that like to balance that?
I think it is difficult to make money as an artist. There's no denial in that. But if you are privileged enough to have a community of students who desire to learn from you. If you are invited to perform in other cities, that is a privilege in itself. So I think it does take time to get recognized as an artist, but once you're recognized, I think money doesn't seem like an obstacle. Right? It's just until you're recognized that it seems like the starving artist. Yeah. Right?
Because that's like a very common thing that people talk about, where it's like, oh, you're going to India, you're going to go like, struggle to make a living, and how are you going to live a life here that we're so comfortable in? But you do need to live a life that feels true to you, right?
But yeah, I think what when we're thinking about, like, even sometimes when I meet people here, they think, but are you earning enough? Yeah. Are you earning? They're so concerned. I mean, yes, I am earning enough, but
are those people who asked you sending you money now?
Exactly. Right? Exactly. But if you think about it, I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but I just want to earn enough to live a happy, peaceful life. Yeah. Like, I don't need to get the latest car every year, or the biggest house in the city, or I need a car that gets me from point A to point B. I love looking at cars. I appreciate the beauty of cars. Yeah. Do I want to possess it? Probably not. Yeah. Right? But I think everyone has their own thing that they like. So it's not, I mean, it's just me that this is just what I'm driven towards.
And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you here to talk about what I define as the rich life. Because again, like you said, just because that's something I desire, it's not something that I'm like craving and think that I'm nothing without it, right?
Correct, yeah.
And one of the reasons that I brought that up is because like when it comes to our society here, we get criticized for not doing things that are norms in society. Like if you don't get married by a certain age, if you're married and don't have kids, when you have kids, like they have to go to certain like schools and universities to be qualified as like, okay, they're doing well. But how do you really set your mind in a way to make decisions that are like completely authentic to who you are as a person and what you feel is right for you versus doing things to like fit into society? So like you said, let's say I don't feel like I need the big car, the luxurious car.
Yeah.
But when other people look at me living a life without that luxury, they think I'm not doing well in life.
Correct. Yeah.
But to me, that's what defines happiness. So how do you kind of take that step to be so strong in what you want for yourself and not let other people's opinions of like, oh, you're not doing that well, or like kind of devaluing you affect you?
Like you said, they're not paying my bills. So their opinions don't matter. But that's not to say that degrees and very successful jobs are undervalued. I mean, if, for example, how many of us or how many people go to medical school desiring to help people?
Exactly.
Is it for the benefit or to help people overcome sickness? What's the reasoning, right?
Yeah.
Is there that desire within you to say, no, I need to help people? I think that would be very noble. But or is it for bragging rights?
Yeah.
Right? I think
and status.
Yes. Are we doing things in our life so that our hearts are totally satisfied with the work we're doing, or is it so that we can brag to people?
Yeah.
Right?
But social acceptance is such a big part of like just being human. Like you want to feel accepted in society. And so like even with me, I'll use me as a personal example. There are certain things that I'm like, no, I love the way this certain aspect of my life is and I'm okay with it. But to someone else, it may seem wrong. And if you're constantly getting criticized for that, it does come to a point where you're like, why can't I just be who you are? And you get exhausted.
Yeah.
But to kind of keep pursuing, I'm doing it, I'm okay with it. But to keep pursuing it and keep saying, no, like, this is who I am. I want to be this way. It takes a lot of, like, persistence, right?
Persistence, also belief in yourself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I'm the best example. I mean, a male dancer in Toronto.
Exactly, yeah.
I've even had people, like, come and tell my mom, like, unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in the backstage, why are you teaching your son dance? They're not my relative. They don't know my mother, but they see a young boy just about to get on stage and they say, why are you teaching him dance?
Yeah.
So I've grown up with this kind of look upon me in Toronto. So I think that's also a reason why I wanted to leave.
Yeah.
Because I knew that in Chennai, there are male dancers who are a part of the professional scene. And where I would be maybe accepted as one of their contemporaries or one amongst them. So even in Toronto, when I remember before, when I was younger, I would have to wear a full face of makeup and go to the venue. And on the way there, I remember I was maybe like 12 or 13. I would be so self-conscious.
Of course,
so I would roll the seat down and I would go to the venue like this, and then I would go to the green room, and until I got on stage, I would be backstage. But once I got on stage, I didn't care. Yeah. So I don't know why that was, but once I was on stage, then everything else around me just like whoosh.
Yeah.
And then, but in Chennai, I'm so comfortable, you know, post-performance, you can go to Saravanan Bhavan or like...
with your dance makeup. Yeah.
No one bats an eye.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this feels like home, where I can be completely myself and no one cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's also important to recognize that it's important to be in places where you feel accepted.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yes, you can keep fighting for your identity in places where you constantly feel like you don't belong. I
Yeah.
almost feel like I'm speaking to myself here, but in a way, like when you're in a place where you feel accepted for who you are, life just kind of feels so much more easier.
It does,
right?
yeah.
And that starts with accepting yourself for who you are first. If you're having an identity crisis in your mind,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard wherever you go, no matter what people say. It's going to be hard for you to stand your ground and be like, no, I'm
Yeah.
okay with who I am,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I would assume to get to that place, it takes a lot of like self-reflection and time in solitude. So
Yeah.
did that happen with you where you spent, I mean, I would assume like even with your life now in Chennai, like between classes and performances and your daily life, you do spend a lot of time on your own, and
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
probably involves a lot of reflecting. So
Yeah.
what's that like for you? Because I kind of feel like people are very scared to spend time on their own. When we're on our own, it's like people quickly grab their phone. Like I've noticed that, especially like let's say I'm
Yeah.
taking a train or even at work. Like it's like the minute people have to stand still for a bit, their phone comes out. Whereas I just stand there and I'm just like, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
like I'm fine. I don't need my phone. But
Correct.
it's very rare to see that these days because you
Yeah.
want that constant distraction, so you don't get time to recognize your own thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But what is it like to like spend time in that in solitude to truly get to know each other? Because like I guess you have
Yeah.
that a lot.
I think the most the truth that we all deny is the person that we spend the most time with is ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? And we're so afraid to go inside ourselves and uncover layers of ourselves that we maybe suppress
Yeah.
or we're just trying not to acknowledge. Right? And when you spend time with yourself, I think so the image that you give out in public and the image that you are behind closed doors is completely different.
Yeah.
Right? And it's this person that I think if you kind of sit with that person and reflect, I think, yeah, you just understand yourself.
Better, yeah.
You understand yourself better without the gaze of another person
Yeah.
or the gaze of
Validation.
society.
Yeah.
Right? So I think also when you're awake at night and the whole world is asleep, I think people are more comfortable being awake
100%.
and they're more productive because they can do things knowing people are not watching them.
Watching them, yeah.
And that kind of puts off a lot of pressure and tension that you're not being judged or observed. So I think like that, when you spend time alone, where am I going with this? I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I'm gonna collect my thoughts and I'm gonna. It's a very tough question.
Yeah, no, it's nice that you said that because contrary to what you said, there's also like another side of society now where it's like we're creating personas of ourselves to show
Yeah.
the world on social media.
Yeah.
Where it's like sometimes the person you see on screen and when you meet them in person, they're totally different. But that persona that they create on Instagram gives them that high of like, oh,
Yeah.
look, I'm getting accepted for who I am.
Correct.
And that's where that whole term, like we talked about this offline, but like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Oh, every time I hear that, I just get so mad because I'm like, why are you faking it? What's wrong with you being who you are and
Yeah.
putting out who you really are to the real world? Like, if people don't accept it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
be true to who you are so that, like you said, the person on the outside and the
Yeah.
person on the inside are both kind of connected.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's nice that you said that because I mean, even especially with the art, I mean, dance and arts, it is largely surrounding your personality.
Yeah.
It is largely surrounding how you look and how, I mean, social media, like you said, it does give a very warped image
Yeah.
of how life actually is because people are only posting the most
best
accomplished moments of
Yeah.
their lives,
Yeah.
but they don't post. Maybe some people do post videos of themselves crying, but
Yeah, I know.
but they don't post their darkest moments or the secrets that they struggle with. No, but because everyone deep down is struggling with something
Yeah.
that kind of does impact the way they interact with people. the way they maybe get angry unnecessarily, or the way they treat people. We don't know why exactly people do it, but I think internally and subconsciously people behave the way they do because of the things going on in their life, or the things that they've experienced. So I think so I do a lot of meditation and spiritual practices for myself. I think what it has helped me understand or uncover is there is darkness, but if you sit with it long enough, I think you can come to terms with how to release it, maybe.
Yeah.
Or how to use it in a way that will. These are so hard to put into words.
Yeah, no,
I
completely understand. Yeah.
Like, it's some things you can't articulate.
I feel like, so visually when I think about what you're saying, I can picture it being like a kid who's really trying to fight against something and starts screaming.
Yeah.
And you trying to understand why that kid's screaming instead of shutting that kid out.
That doesn't undermine therapy. People need to go to therapy.
Of course.
Meditation is not a bandage for therapy.
Yes.
But I think it does kind of relax those
anxiousness,
feelings,
right? Yeah.
It does kind of bring you into a centeredness, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously you touched a little bit about meditation, which relates to spirituality in a way. And apart from religion, spirituality is a whole different side of it.
Yeah.
How has that affected you in terms of how the person you were in Toronto that said, okay, let's leave this behind to go pursue the arts in Chennai?
I think spirituality is personal for everybody.
Yeah.
There's no right, I think religion is prescribed, but spirituality is something that we have the liberty to define for ourselves. So maybe my definition of spirituality may not resonate with the next
Someone
person.
else, yeah.
But even for me, dance is spiritual. It's a way for me to connect to something that's not that we can perceive with the eye.
Yeah.
Right? Even when I'm dancing on stage, it's not that I'm not talking to the audience. I am addressing the audience.
And you do that really well.
But I'm there's a higher consciousness that I am speaking to, that I'm sharing with the audience. So for me, dance is a spiritual way of communicating, not God, but an energy.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
It's not even about a specific God. It's about the energy you feel. And for you, it's dance. For someone else, it could be something else where they use that energy that they feel to, you know, translate it into another art form or whatever it is that they're passionate about.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you see people like pursuing their goals, you see a type of energy that you don't see like when they're with their family, for example, and it shows that passion that comes out of it.
Yes.
That is a form of spirituality too, right? So it's like I wanted to kind of know what that was like, and because obviously that plays a big role in making that change to go from a life here which feels so materialistic at times to kind of leave that behind and say, let's live a simple life, but only focus on what truly makes me happy, right?
Yeah, and that's not to say dance is the only thing in my life that
of course,
drives me. Dance is just a part of my life.
Part of it, yeah.
It's a very large part of my life, but I also, I think another form of spirituality for me is traveling, right? I love solo trips. And I think going to consecrated spaces like temples, it may not be to see the God and weep and all those things. Yeah. It's, like I said, energy.
The energy of just being in that space brings that out.
That energetic field of spaces that were created thousands of years ago and that are still standing. And that makes my mind boggle, right? To just be in that presence of that ancient energy. It really puts things into perspective, right? That we are not going to be alive for this many years. but this temple is still standing.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that is spirituality. The people who created that must have been extremely, the way they thought. I don't know if things can exist for that long built today.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
You know? Like, so the minds of the people who created this, and I mean, even if you just go touch the stone and you're just like, this has been around for so long.
Yeah.
Like, it just gives you goosebumps, right? So I think for me, India defines these things, where I have access to these spaces, where I have people who I look up to, role models. I think that's also very important for all of us, to have people we look up to.
Yeah.
And who kind of help us shape our core values and beliefs. And for me, I needed to go to India because there are artists that I look up to, and being in their presence would help me navigate my own personal journey as an artist. Right. In Toronto, of course, we have dance teachers, but I've never wanted to be a dance. I love teaching, but I don't want to run a massive school where I'm just doing Arangetram after Arangetram after Arangetram. That's never been my vision for my artistic journey. Of course, that makes great money, but for me, I think I just wanted to be satisfied with inculcating wisdom of the arts through gurus who have journeyed with the art in their own way and who are willing to share that with me generously. Some of my teachers have taught me for free.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm so grateful to them for sharing so without any hesitation.
I know. Yeah, that's hard to find
That
these
is hard
days,
to find.
right?
Yeah.
It's funny when you mentioned that, my mind completely switched to another side, which, like, let's say an entrepreneur, like as a dancer, you look up to certain people because you're like, this is how I want to be as an artist. At the same time, when you take an entrepreneur, like so many entrepreneurs they're obsessed with Elon Musk, for example. But it's the same connection at the end of the day. What they see in him is that they admire him because they're like, I want to become this person, right? And they want to they look at him the same way you look at your guru. But obviously it's a different form. So when you're saying it, like, it's so easy for people to be like, oh, he's only talking about dance. But it's about the concept that you're talking about that people need to understand and say, I can apply this to my life in a way where if I look up to a certain person or I have someone to kind of aspire to be, it gives me a direction of defining who I am too, right?
Absolutely. And it's not imitating their journey. Yeah. It's being inspired by their journey. Yeah. To create your own path.
But now, I do need to ask this though. Now that you've moved to India, do you ever feel FOMO when you see things happening in Toronto and you're like, I kind of wish I was there?
Honestly, I don't.
Yeah, because I never do when I leave. I never do. I'm like, thank God I'm not there.
Yeah. But I do enjoy visits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I touched on that is because I hear that from other people where they say, I would love to move, but I feel left out because so much of my life is here now.
Yeah.
But I feel like that sense of like feeling like you're missing out is because you haven't really found who you are. Whereas like when you find who you are and find a space that feels like that's where you belong, you won't feel like you're missing out on something else.
If you really want to be somewhere, I think the first few days may be hard. Yeah. But once you settle into a rhythm, I think you'd be very grateful you did it. Yeah. And I mean, you don't want to die with any regrets, right?
I know that's the main thing, right? Yeah. Like you never want to look back in life and be like, I wish I took that step.
Yeah. And I mean, if it doesn't work out, you're the only person you have to blame. You don't have to blame anyone else for holding you back.
Yeah. Again, I want to relate it to like people who are, let's say they're not into the art forms, they're not into spirituality, but they like meditation. They want to implement meditation in their life. Like one thing I want to kind of say again is not every aspect of what you're talking about they need to be able to relate to, but let's say someone's listening to this saying, oh, yeah, I would love to leave behind, like, everything behind and move to another country and live in peace. But I have my family here. I have my job here. Like, why would I leave all the privileges here to go live somewhere else and start life from scratch? What can people like that do to implement those simple techniques in their life, whether it's meditation or whatever it is, to feel that sense of like peace within them while running this rat race that they feel like they have to run?
I think it's just asking yourself, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I think we just do things on autopilot throughout life. We do things because our neighbor is doing it, or that my friend is doing it. This person is having a massive wedding, so I'm also going to have a massive wedding. Right? We do things out of compulsion.
Yeah.
Just sit and think, why am I doing it?
Yeah.
I think just that why is enough to uncover so many things within yourself. Journaling.
I know.
Journal.
So important.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to just vomit out what's inside.
Yeah.
And just find journaling prompts on Google and start writing.
And that's the thing. It's so easy these days.
Yeah.
But it's just about the effort you take to really get to like kind of put the brakes on and just be like, okay, let me just stop running this like hamster wheel and just sit there and be like, okay, am I really following like a purposeful life for me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And why? Who am I doing it for? Is this benefiting my soul? Is this benefiting of course, asking yourself, where is this going to get me in 10 years? Setting goals. Those things are very important too. Absolutely. We have to be goal-oriented. We have to have a plan, right? But sometimes also going with the flow is nice.
Yeah.
When we can't control everything, every outcome in our life. Sometimes when you surrender, things happen the way they're meant to.
Right. And again, I want to keep emphasizing it. We're not trying to say that the materialistic life is not the way to live.
Yeah.
You can have that. There's
Absolutely.
nothing wrong in wanting luxury. We all do it some way. But what's
how much
important
of it is necessary?
Exactly. How much of it is what you need versus what you're doing because it looks good to society, right? And one thing I think I've mentioned on the podcast before too is like when I used to be like a youth worker, when I used to talk to these like students who were like having a bad day or something, one thing they would say is like, I just wish my parents were home with me. I just want to spend more time with them. But I'm not saying it in a way to blame the parents, because parents are out there working 3-4 jobs just to be able to afford that lifestyle. And especially today, things are getting to a point where they feel like they need 3 to 4 jobs to be able to afford the lifestyle. So you can't blame them. But at the same time, it's like, do you really need that big mansion because it looks good and your reputation is great? Or because that's what, your basic necessity is, right?
Yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't you be content in a house that's smaller? I mean, for example, there are only families of 3 living in a massive house.
Yeah, where they're like all in separate corners and you don't even see each other.
Yeah. And
it's not a home, that's a house.
That's a house, right? But like you said, there's a difference between a home and a house.
Yeah.
So just thinking about the necessity of the luxuries that we desire can be a great step forward in, uncovering this question of why. Yeah.
What do you feel like in this phase of your life is your why now? Should give you like a 30-minute break to think about this, because I know it's hard to answer.
It is a very hard answer.
Yeah.
There's just so many things going on that there's just so many different elements of myself that this question applies to.
Which is the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's never just one side of us, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think any person is just black or white. They're colored with so many different shades that make who they are. Some whys I can't answer.
No, that's fine.
On
we'll keep
camera.
that for offline. Well, that's good to know. I feel like you gave me so much to reflect on, and a lot of things that I'm like, that's exactly the answer that I was looking for a long time. So I really hope that this conversation did the same for many people that were listening, where it's like, they took some time, maybe on their commute, maybe while they're doing like, chores at home, to really ask themselves like why they're doing what they're doing and what the purpose is. And sometimes, they're at a place where it's like now they have responsibilities, like they're married, they have kids, and like their whole focus is on making sure their kids are okay, and they don't have that time for themselves to think of that why.
Yeah.
But you really kind of emphasize that importance of taking time for yourself to think about like why you're doing the things you're doing. So
yeah.
I'm really happy we had this conversation.
Thank you, Janani.
Is there anything you want to say to the last words for people to leave behind with, just for them to, live a more authentic life that feels true to who they are? Yeah.
I would say do things from your heart. Yeah. And we're only here for a short time. So make the most of it and live a life that you'll be proud of.
And like I always say, live life on your own terms.
Yeah,
That's,
absolutely.
I think, one of the most important things that I keep saying to myself and to others. Always live life on your own terms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janani.
This concludes episode number 10 of The Story Behind a Title. Thank you so much for all of your feedback that I've been getting in person and on all my social media platforms. Stay tuned for many more exciting stories coming up.